If you knew this secret, you will manifest faster. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a moment that may very well change the way you see your life, your struggles, your delays, and even your dreams. Today is not just another talk, not just another motivational message. This is an invitation to step behind the curtain of reality and discover a truth so powerful that once you see it, you can never unsee it. Every person listening right now has something they are waiting for: love, success, healing, financial freedom, recognition, peace, or a breakthrough that seems just out of reach. You may have prayed for it, worked for it, visualized it, or hoped for it, and yet somehow it still feels delayed. But what if I told you that nothing is actually missing, only something has been misunderstood? Ladies and gentlemen, the world has trained us to believe that life happens to us, that circumstances decide our future, that luck favors only a few, and that we must fight endlessly just to survive. But deep inside, you have always felt something different. A quiet knowing that you were meant for more. A whisper that tells you this life is not meant to be small, limited, or controlled by fear. That whisper is not imagination, it is memory. It is the remembrance of who you truly are and what you are capable of becoming. You see, most people are running after their desires, chasing relationships, opportunities, money, and recognition as if these things are somewhere far away. But the secret you are about to hear today reveals something shocking. Nothing you want is actually outside of you. Everything you seek is responding to you, to your inner world, your assumptions, and the story you tell yourself about who you are. When you change that story, the entire script of your life begins to rewrite itself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why some people seem to get everything with ease while others struggle endlessly. It is not about intelligence. It is not about talent. It is not even about effort. It is about identity. It is about what you silently accept as true about yourself when no one is watching. Your life right now is not a reflection of your wishes. It is a reflection of your beliefs. And once you understand how to shift those beliefs, you will realize you have been holding the key to faster manifestation all along. Perhaps you've tried affirmations. Maybe you've watched countless videos, read books, or followed techniques that promised miracles. But still, something feels stuck. That's because manifestation is not a technique, it is a state of being. It is not something you do, it is something you become. And when you become the version of yourself who already has what they desire, the world has no choice but to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you will not be given another ritual to memorize or another method to struggle with. You will be given a truth so simple, yet so powerful, that it will quietly dismantle every limitation you've ever accepted. You will learn why waiting disappears, why chasing ends, and why what you want begins to move toward you the moment you change how you see yourself. So take a breath, let go of doubt, and prepare to hear the secret that has been hiding in plain sight, the one that, once understood, will cause everything you've been seeking to finally find you. The secret is not action, it is assumption. Most people believe manifestation is something you do. They think it comes from working harder, visualizing longer, repeating affirmations louder, or forcing themselves to stay positive. But all of that is surface level. The real power behind everything you experience is much deeper and far quieter. It is your assumption about who you are and how life treats you. Your world is not created by what you want. It is shaped by what you accept as true. An assumption is not a hope. It is not a wish. It is a settled inner knowing. It is what you believe without needing proof. And whatever you assume to be true about yourself and your life becomes the blueprint reality must follow. If you assume people always leave, they will. If you assume money is hard to get, it will be. If you assume love comes with pain, that is exactly how it will arrive. Life is simply reflecting the story you are telling inside. This is why two people can live in the same city, have similar backgrounds, and yet experience completely different realities. One feels lucky. Things fall into place. Opportunities appear. The other feels blocked. Everything seems difficult. It is not fate. It is not chance. It is the invisible story each one is assuming about themselves. Your subconscious mind does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you expect. Expectation is assumption in motion. When you expect rejection, you unconsciously behave in ways that invite it. When you expect success, your energy, your posture, your decisions, and even your timing shift to match it. Reality simply meets you where you already are inside. Most people are trying to change their world by changing their actions. But actions come from identity. You do not act your way into a new life, you assume your way into one. The moment you internally accept something as already yours, your behavior, choices, and emotional reactions align with that new truth automatically. You do not have to force it. It happens naturally, the same way you naturally act like the person you already believe you are. Think about it. You do not wake up every day trying to be yourself. You simply are. You do not affirm that your name is your name. You assume it. And because you assume it, everything about you confirms it. In the same way, when you assume you are loved, chosen, wealthy, respected, or successful, life rearranges to confirm that assumption. The delay people experience is not because reality is slow. It is because their inner acceptance is divided. On the surface, they want something, but deep inside, they are still assuming the opposite. They want abundance, but assume struggle. They want love, but assume abandonment. They want success, but assume failure. And the assumption always wins. This is why repeating affirmations without changing assumption feels exhausting. You are trying to talk over an identity you still believe. True change happens when a new idea about yourself becomes natural, when it no longer feels like pretending, when it starts to feel like remembering. The fastest way to manifest anything is to decide internally that it is already yours, not emotionally hoping, not desperately wanting, but calmly knowing. Calmness is the sign of assumption. When you know something is done, you do not chase it. You relax, you stop checking, you stop worrying. That relaxed certainty is the state that produces results. This is also why obsession blocks manifestation. Obsession is the energy of, I don't have it. It keeps you anchored to lack. But when something is assumed, you do not think about it all the time. You think about it the way you think about your own name. It is there, so you move on. Your outer world is not responding to your effort. It is responding to your self-concept, the story you live in about who you are. If your self-concept says, I am always overlooked, you will be. If it says, I am the one people choose, they will. People, circumstances, and opportunities cannot help but play the role that matches your inner script. And here is the part that changes everything. You can change that script right now. You do not need to fix the past. You do not need to wait for proof. You only need to decide who you are now. Assumption is not lying to yourself. It is selecting a new identity and allowing your nervous system to get comfortable with it. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. That is normal. You have been living in a different story for years. But repetition is not what makes it real. Acceptance is. The moment a new identity feels natural, it becomes powerful. This is why imagination is so important. When you imagine yourself already being who you want to be, you are rehearsing a new assumption. And the more real it feels, the more your subconscious accepts it. Once accepted, it no longer feels like a dream, it feels like fact. And facts shape reality. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between something vividly imagined and something physically experienced. It only knows what feels real. That is why inner conversations matter. How you speak to yourself when you are alone is what you are assuming. If you mentally say, I always get what I want, and feel it, that becomes your new baseline. When your baseline changes, everything changes. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest what matches your default state. And your default state is built from your assumptions. This means you do not have to fight circumstances. You do not have to control people. You do not have to force outcomes. You only have to shift what you believe is normal for you. When being loved becomes normal, love shows up. When being wealthy becomes normal, money flows. When being respected becomes normal, people reflect it. The universe is not testing you. It is mirroring you. This is why trying to convince others to treat you differently rarely works. You must first convince yourself. Once your inner assumption changes, people naturally adjust. They feel it. They respond to it. They play their part. Your assumption is the command. Reality is the response. And here is the secret that almost no one realizes: you are always assuming something. Even right now. If you do not consciously choose it, you are unconsciously repeating an old one. So the only question is not, will I assume? The question is, what will I assume? The moment you decide, things always work out for me, and you mean it, you have just changed your timeline. The moment you decide, I am the one who is chosen, the world begins to confirm it. The moment you decide, I am safe, supported, and guided, life starts to prove it. You do not have to wait for permission. You do not have to see evidence. You only have to accept it internally. Because once an assumption becomes who you are, Reality has no choice but to follow. Life from the end, not toward it. Most people live their entire lives walking toward what they want. They wake up thinking, one day I will be happy. One day I will be loved. One day I will be successful. But that way of thinking quietly locks the desire into the future, when something is always on the way. It never arrives. The secret to collapsing time and accelerating manifestation is to stop living toward your desire and start living from it. To live from the end means you do not identify as the person trying to get something. You identify as the person who already has it. That shift in identity is what bends reality. You do not have to pretend. You do not have to lie to yourself. You simply choose a different inner position. Instead of thinking, how can I make this happen? You move into, of course this is happening, this is who I am. Your mind does not respond to effort. It responds to identity. The version of you who is still chasing love thinks, feels, and reacts very differently from the version of you who is already loved. The version of you who is trying to get rich moves through life with tension, comparison, and fear. The version of you who already feels wealthy moves with calm, confidence, and expectation. Those inner states are not small, they are instructions to reality. Living from the end means asking a simple but powerful question. If my desire were already fulfilled, how would I be showing up right now? Not what would you do someday? What would you feel today? How would you speak to yourself? How would you react when something goes wrong? How would you see your future? The moment you answer those questions honestly and begin to feel them, you have shifted timelines. Most people think they must change their circumstances first in order to feel better, but that keeps them stuck. The truth is, you must feel different first, and then circumstances follow. Feeling is not a reaction to reality, it is the cause of reality. When you live from the end, you are no longer emotionally waiting. You are no longer scanning for signs. You are no longer anxious about whether it will happen. You have mentally moved into the room where it already exists. And this is what creates speed. Time is not what delays manifestation, indecision is. Being mentally split between I have it and I don't is what stretches things out. When you live from the end, you collapse that split. You become single-minded. You become certain. This is why desperation repels results. Desperation says, I do not have it. Calmness says, I do. And calmness is magnetic. Living from the end does not mean you ignore your current reality. It means you no longer let it define you. You see circumstances as old news, leftovers from previous beliefs. You do not argue with them. You simply outgrow them. When you step into the identity of the fulfilled you, something powerful happens. Your standards change. Your tolerance changes. Your reactions change. You stop settling. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing. And all of that shifts how people and opportunities treat you. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. If you want to be chosen, you must become someone who assumes they are chosen. If you want to be successful, you must become someone who expects success. If you want to be loved, you must become someone who feels lovable. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Most people are waiting for life to prove they are worthy. But the version of you who is already living from the end does not wait for proof. They expect it. An expectation is a command to reality. This is why visualization works only when it changes how you see yourself. If you imagine something but still feel like the same person, nothing changes. But when imagination shifts your identity, everything changes. You are not trying to create a future. You are stepping into a different now. The moment you feel internally that something is already yours, you have moved into that reality. The physical world just needs time to catch up. And here is the deeper truth: the fulfilled version of you already exists. You are not inventing them. You are choosing to become them. Every version of you, the confident you, the loved you, the wealthy you, exists right now as a potential state. Living from the end means you tune into that state and allow it to become your dominant identity. You do not need permission. You do not need circumstances to change. You only need to change your inner position. When you live from the end, you stop asking, when will it happen? You start living as though it already has. And that is when everything begins to move. People begin to treat you differently. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. Delays dissolve. Doors open. Not because you forced anything, but because you became the version of you that expects them. This is why trying to get something keeps it away. Getting implies lack, but being implies fulfillment. And fulfillment is what reality responds to. Living from the end also changes how you experience obstacles. When you are still trying to get something, obstacles feel like proof it is not working. But when you are living from the end, obstacles feel temporary and irrelevant. You know the outcome, so you do not panic about the middle. That calm knowing is powerful. It tells life, I trust this. I am not worried. I know who I am. And life responds by confirming it. You do not have to convince anyone else. You only have to convince yourself. The moment you do, the outer world will rearrange to match the new inner truth you are living from. This is why some people experience sudden shifts, overnight success, unexpected love, instant breakthroughs. They did not get lucky. They shifted identity. They stopped living toward what they wanted and started living from it. And reality followed. Once you understand this, you stop waiting for your life to begin. You start living as though it already has. Emotion is the bridge between imagination and reality. Every desire you have begins as a thought. But thoughts alone do not create. What gives a thought the power to become real is emotion. Emotion is the signal that tells reality whether something is just an idea or an accepted truth. This is why two people can imagine the same thing, but only one sees it materialize. One feels it real. The other only thinks about it. Your inner emotional state is constantly broadcasting instructions to life. It is not what you say out loud that matters most. It is what you quietly feel to be true. When you feel hopeful, loved, powerful, or secure, you are telling the world, this is my reality. When you feel desperate, anxious, or unworthy, you are telling the world, I am still missing something. Reality obeys whichever feeling you live in most. Emotion is not a reaction to what happens. It is the cause of what happens. This is the part most people never realize. They wait for circumstances to make them feel better. But the ones who manifest quickly feel better first, and then circumstances change. Think of emotion as the language of the subconscious. The subconscious does not understand logic, it understands feeling. If you imagine yourself wealthy but still feel worried, unsafe, or doubtful, the subconscious receives the signal of lack. It does not matter what picture you see in your mind if the emotional tone says, I don't have it. That emotional tone becomes your reality. But when you imagine something and feel the relief, excitement, or calm certainty of already having it, something powerful happens. Your body relaxes, your nervous system shifts, your inner world accepts a new truth. And the moment that truth is accepted, it must express itself outwardly. This is why emotional neutrality is more powerful than forced excitement. You do not need to feel euphoric. You need to feel natural. When something feels normal, it is assumed, and what is assumed becomes real. If you imagine being in a loving relationship and it feels calm, safe, and familiar, you have already moved into that state. If you imagine success and it feels like, of course, this is my life, then you have aligned with it. The emotional state of normalcy is the key. This is also why stress and urgency slow everything down. Urgency is emotional proof that you believe you do not have what you want. It puts your system into survival mode, and survival mode can only recreate struggle. But when you emotionally relax into your desire, you remove resistance. You stop pushing against reality. You stop arguing with time. You enter the state of allowance, and that is where manifestation accelerates. Your emotions are constantly training your subconscious what to expect. If you walk around feeling overlooked, your subconscious expects to be overlooked. If you walk around feeling chosen, it expects to be chosen. And whatever it expects, it organizes your perception, your behavior, and your opportunities to match. This means you do not need to visualize for hours. You need to feel differently for moments. A few minutes of real emotional alignment is more powerful than hours of empty thinking. When you close your eyes and imagine your desire fulfilled, the most important part is not what you see, it is what you feel in your chest, in your stomach, in your breath. Do you feel relief, safety, confidence, peace? Those feelings are not imagination, they are the emotional signature of your future reality. When you experience them now, you bring that future into the present. Your nervous system does not know time, it only knows now. When you feel something now, it believes it is happening now. And once your nervous system accepts something as happening now, your mind and body behave as if it is true. That changes how you speak, how you decide, how you react, and all of that changes what shows up. This is why someone who suddenly knows something is going to work out often sees miracles. They are not hoping. They are emotionally settled. That emotional settlement is what bends probability. The outer world is fluid. It is constantly reorganizing itself around the strongest emotional story you are living in. If your dominant emotional story is fear, you get more reasons to be afraid. If your dominant emotional story is confidence, you get more reasons to feel confident. So the secret is not to force positive emotions. It is to gently shift into emotional states that match the life you want. Instead of asking, how can I make this happen? Ask, how would it feel if it already had? And then allow that feeling. You may notice a softening in your body, a release, a quiet joy. That is not fantasy. That is alignment. The more often you visit that emotional state, the more natural it becomes. And when it becomes natural, it becomes dominant. And when it becomes dominant, it becomes reality. This is also why healing old emotional patterns is so important. If you carry unresolved feelings of abandonment, unworthiness, or insecurity, they will continue to shape what you attract. Not because you are broken, but because those emotions are still telling your subconscious what to expect. When you begin to feel loved, safe, and enough, you change the story your nervous system is telling. And the world must respond to that new story. You do not have to convince the universe. You only have to convince your body. Once your body emotionally accepts something as real, the universe follows. Emotion is the bridge because it connects imagination to belief. And belief is what moves mountains. When you imagine something and feel it deeply, you are no longer just wishing. You are rehearsing a new reality. And reality cannot tell the difference between rehearsal and truth. So choose your feelings carefully. They are not small. They are the architecture of your future. When you feel as though you are already the person who has what you desire, you stop trying to manifest. You start expressing. And that expression is what the world reflects back to you. Stop reacting to what you see. Everything you see in your physical world right now is delayed feedback. It is the echo of what you believed, felt, and assumed in the past. Yet most people treat what they see as the truth that decides their future. They look at their bank account, their relationships, their health, their opportunities, and they let those images dictate how they feel. In doing so, they unknowingly keep the same reality looping again and again. Reaction is what traps people. When you react emotionally to circumstances, you are telling reality, yes, this is true. You are reinforcing the very conditions you want to change. This is why it feels like nothing moves. Every emotional reaction is a vote for the past. The moment you understand that what you see is not the cause but the effect, you gain your power back. Your inner state creates first. The outer world follows later. When you stop letting appearances control how you think and feel, you begin to reverse that order. You become the source again. Most people think they are being realistic, but what they call realism is just loyalty to old beliefs. Reality is not fixed, it is fluid. It is constantly reshaping itself around your dominant inner state. But it cannot change if you keep emotionally agreeing with what is already there. To stop reacting does not mean you deny what you see. It means you stop letting it decide who you are. You no longer let a bad day convince you that life is against you. You no longer let a delay convince you that you are failing. You no longer let a rejection convince you that you are unwanted. You see all of it as temporary and outdated. When something goes wrong and you stay calm, you are doing something powerful. You are saying, this is not my final story. That calmness creates a new outcome. Most people panic when things look bad. Panic is emotional agreement with failure. Calm is emotional agreement with success. And whatever you emotionally agree with becomes your experience. When you stop reacting, you begin to respond from your chosen identity instead of your old fears. A person who assumes they are successful does not collapse when something fails. A person who assumes they are loved does not fall apart when someone pulls away. They stay rooted in who they know they are. That rootedness is what changes the outcome. Think about it, two people can face the same obstacle. One spirals, the other stays steady. One gets stuck, the other moves forward. The difference is not what happened, it is how they reacted. When you stop reacting, you break the cycle. This is why inner discipline is more important than outer control. You cannot control every event, but you can control what you emotionally agree with. And that is where your power lies. Your mind will try to convince you that what you see is the truth. But the truth is what you assume. The physical world is always behind. It is showing you yesterday's thinking. If you want a different tomorrow, you must stop reacting to today. When you emotionally detach from unwanted circumstances, they lose their grip. They no longer have energy. They begin to dissolve. When you emotionally invest in what you want instead, you give that future life. This is why staying internally aligned matters more than fixing things externally. You do not fix reality by fighting it. You fix it by outgrowing it. Imagine a person who knows they are destined for success. When a door closes, they do not feel defeated. They feel redirected. That feeling shifts their energy, their choices, their confidence, and leads them to a better door. Someone who reacts with fear stays stuck at the closed door. The same applies to love, money, health, and opportunity. Your emotional response determines what happens next. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the old story. When you stop feeding it, it starves. And when you start feeding a new story, one of confidence, certainty, and self-trust, it grows. This does not require pretending everything is perfect. It requires deciding who you are regardless of what you see. You choose your identity first. The world adjusts second. This is the deepest form of faith, not hoping things will change, but knowing they will. When you no longer let circumstances control your state, you become untouchable. You move through challenges without losing yourself. And that stability creates results that chaos never could. The outer world is loud. It will always try to grab your attention. But the moment you stop reacting, you take back your power. You become the one who decides what is real. And reality has no choice but to follow that decision. You are not manifesting, you are remembering. Everything you desire already exists. Not as a distant dream, not as something that must be created from nothing, but as a version of reality that is already fully formed. What you call manifesting is not bringing something into existence. It is tuning into what is already there. You are not creating your future. You are selecting it. This is why some things come into your life with almost magical ease. You did not force them. You simply aligned with the version of yourself who naturally experiences them. In those moments, it felt less like effort and more like recognition. Like, of course, this happened. That is what remembering feels like. You have lived many versions of yourself. The confident version, the insecure version, the hopeful version, the exhausted version. Each one lives in a different reality, even if the outer circumstances look similar. The version you inhabit determines what you see, what you attract, and what unfolds. Most people think their problems are outside of them. But the true issue is that they are identified with a version of themselves that no longer fits what they want. They are living in an old story. And as long as they keep remembering that story, they keep recreating it. To remember is not to think harder. It is to return to who you really are beneath the fear, doubt, and conditioning. Before the world told you who to be, you knew. You knew you were worthy. You knew you were powerful. You knew you were meant for more. That knowing never left. It just got covered by other people's opinions, past experiences, and emotional wounds. When you desire something, it is not random. It is a memory calling you forward. It is the echo of a version of you that already exists. Your longing is not lack, it is recognition. You do not long for things you are not connected to. You only long for what is already part of you. This is why forcing manifestation feels heavy. You are trying to build something that already exists. The real work is not creation, it is alignment. Alignment happens when you drop the old identity and allow the true one to return. Think of how you remember a forgotten name. You do not invent it. You relax and let it come back to you. That is how your life shifts. When you stop forcing and start allowing, everything you are meant to experience finds you. Remembering changes how you see effort. You no longer feel like you are pushing uphill. You feel like you are being pulled forward. Things begin to line up. Synchronicities appear. Doors open without struggle. That is not coincidence, it is coherence. You are in harmony with the version of you that already has what you want. This is why inner peace is such a powerful state. When you are peaceful, you are not resisting who you are. You are not arguing with your future. You are allowing it. Resistance creates delay. Acceptance creates speed. To remember who you are is to let go of who you thought you had to be. You do not have to prove yourself. You do not have to earn worth. You do not have to chase love. You do not have to beg for abundance. All of that is already yours in the version of you that is aligned. When you feel drawn to a better life, it is because that life is already aware of you. It is calling you back to yourself. The reason imagination is so powerful is because it is not fantasy, it is memory. When you imagine yourself in a better situation and it feels real, it is because you are touching that version of yourself. You are not making it up. You are remembering it. And when you remember it often enough, you begin to live from it. Your posture changes. Your voice changes. Your decisions change. Your boundaries change. And the world changes with you. This is why identity is everything. When you remember who you truly are, you stop tolerating what does not match you. You stop chasing what is already yours. You move with quiet authority. And life responds. You do not have to convince anyone of your value when you remember it yourself. People feel it. Opportunities sense it. Circumstances rearrange around it. This is also why healing happens so naturally when you shift identity. Pain belongs to old stories. When you step into a new self, the pain no longer has a place to live. You are not here to struggle for what is meant for you. You are here to remember it. Every time you choose a thought that empowers you, you are remembering. Every time you feel worthy, you are remembering. Every time you expect good things, you are remembering. And as you remember, reality adjusts. Because reality is not something that happens to you. It is something that responds to who you are. When you finally remember who you have always been, everything you have been waiting for recognizes you too.